What's up, Barnhill family, and welcome back to the channel.
Yo.
So, one of the UFC's biggest stars, Francis Ngannou, is going to be putting his heavyweight title on the line this month at the end of the month. He's also going to be putting effectively his future fighting career on the line because he has decided to fight out his UFC contract. This is the last fight on his UFC contract. However, I do believe that if he wins, they will automatically add another fight on to the contract. So if he loses to Ciryl Gane, Francis Ngannou is no longer a UFC fighter. And so the question I really wanted to pose to you is, this is a big risk. And obviously Francis is kind of a name that's drawn some star power over the last couple of years. And he may think that there's a big match for him waiting in boxing or somewhere else outside of the UFC when this is over with, but it seems to be quite the gamble. What do you make of this?
It's very rough when you go to bet on yourself in these situations and it doesn't go your way. And I'm not really one of those people who thinks Francis Ngannou doesn't have a chance. Of course he has a chance. He can knock anybody out. But a lot of people are looking at Ciryl Gane as the guy that can beat Francis. And, if you've seen some of the sparring footage, Francis said none of that stuff matters. I was in there trying to make him look good. And, you never know what the truth behind the sparring footage is. But I think that Ciryl Gane knows exactly how they feel when they fight each other. And I think Francis knows it too. So while the main characters know exactly probably how this fight's going to go, everybody else is still waiting to see it happen. And in my opinion, a win for Francis Ngannou means another title opportunity, another time to defend his belt and try to make himself the greatest heavyweight of all time, which eventually will become if he continues to win like he's winning. But a loss could really hurt him, because if the UFC goes, okay, well, why don't you go test out free agency, see what you can get, and the boxers don't come back with the numbers that he thinks he deserves. Yeah. And I don't think that Francis deserves a pay decrease. Right. But I don't think Francis is worth what Francis thinks Francis is worth. And that's sort of kind of a rough subject. When you go out to free agency, you actually get a taste for what people actually are willing to pay for you. I think the championship clause is probably the best thing for Francis Ngannou. You win this fight, you got your guaranteed money and you got your championship money. This is definitely the best paycheck that he can get. I think with a loss, the fights with Fury and Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder, all these fights are a little bit more far-fetched for him. But if he can win and maybe win one more and then leave the UFC as a winner and go into free agency as a winner and a title holder that didn't lose his title, then we could be talking about a mega fight. But I think if he goes in there and gets dismantled by Ciryl Gane, the UFC is going to come in with the reality numbers, and then the boxers, if he goes to try to test out free agency, they know they have the leverage on him, and they're not going to give him the $50 million or whatever that he's hoping that he could get.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you're absolutely right, and Dana has said that since the beginning, and Dana maintains that his relationship with Francis has never been anything other than pleasant. He believes that it's some third-party individuals, Francis's management, and the people that he surrounded himself with that have been the problem here and been the spoke in the tire of progress, so to speak.
It's always those guys.
Yeah, and most of the time it is. And I believe that Dana and Francis, they both seem like very nice, reasonable people, and so I don't see why they wouldn't get along. I think that it probably is a management dispute, but this is risky for Francis. And of course, and it's weird because a lot of people are talking about this fight like, oh man, Gane's the next thing, and what's going to happen if Francis loses and he's no longer in the UFC. And while that certainly could happen, and that may very well, we'll do a predictions video, I may very well pick Ciryl Gane to win this fight. I have not decided yet who I think is going to win this fight, but make no mistake about it, Francis Ngannou could certainly win against Ciryl Gane. Francis Ngannou can knock anybody out. And in a lot of respects, I think Francis Ngannou has an easier route to victory than Ciryl. Cyryl's not known for starching one-punch knockout power. Francis is. Ciryl has to be perfect for a lot longer than Francis does. Francis is basically the Deontay Wilder of MMA. And, maybe that big boxing fight is sitting out there. maybe one of these organizations like One Championship or Ryzen or even Bellator that has a relationship with Showtime is willing to let him continue to fight MMA, but also do these one-offs in boxing whenever he likes, whereas the UFC is not really allowing him to do that. So maybe he knows something that we don't know. But as you said, if he loses this fight, and then how do you take a guy that just lost an MMA fight and put him up against a great heavyweight like a Tyson Fury, like an Anthony Joshua, like even a Deontay Wilder, or anybody that holds a belt for that matter, or is up at the top of heavyweight? It's a stretch to say that this guy can come in there and fight you now. And even if he was able to bridge that gap and get in the ring with them, all three of those matchups that I just named, Joshua, Fury, and Wilder, are really bad matchups for him, especially Fury and Wilder, in my opinion, because I think Wilder does what Francis does in the boxing ring better than Francis does it in the boxing ring, whereas Francis does it better in the cage, clearly. But Tyson Fury, I think, would just box his ears off. So it would just have to be a payday for Francis. So really it all boils down to, what does Ngannou want to, where does he want his career to go from here? Does legacy matter to him? Does he care about being the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time? Or is it more important to try to get one of these mega matchups? I just don't know. Really, only he can answer that question, but we can just speculate as to what might happen.
Yeah, when you're in the UFC, you have to deal with fighting with pressure, and under the bright lights. When you're in a title fight, even more pressure. When you're the main event, you're the heavyweight world champion, and all of the lights are on you, you're walking out very last. There's a ton of pressure that comes with that. Now, what I think is a bad mistake, in potentially a costly mistake for Francis, is that he has effectively put more pressure on himself.
Yeah.
By putting all the chips on, throwing all his chips in, saying, I'm going to win this fight and then do one more, and then I'm trying to get out of this contract and all of that stuff. I think it's kind of risky, and that's going to create an emotion that we don't usually see Francis have to deal with. I don't think he's ever dealt with it in his life because he's never been in this particular situation. I think that Francis Ngannou could either come out and be angry, chip on his shoulder, which is not something we usually see out of him, which could lead to bad results for him. And once you get out of it and you're out of your mental space in a fight, it's all but over. And if you got a technical striker like Ciryl Gane, and he, evades your shots, your big shots, and now you're emotionally drained, you're physically drained, and you really can't set up to knock him out anymore, and you've just kind of shown that you're angry and you're trying to kill him. Yeah. Then Cyryl's going to pick you apart, and he's going to walk away with the belt. And if you come in with this brash, I don't care type of vibe, then you might also be messing yourself up in that regard too. So I feel like it's a rough situation for Francis, and that's why I am kind of leaning towards Ciryl. I obviously know Francis can knock anybody out, but I feel like the added pressure that he has put on himself is going to play a role in this fight. And, they haven't been doing a great job selling this fight. They haven't really done much to promote it. So it feels to me like he's just waiting, and he's kind of jaded towards the UFC, and it feels like he deserves more, and maybe they should be promoting him more. But the UFC they are the machine. You never point your guns at the machine because it never works in your favor. Look, the UFC probably took their hands off of this fight, and they go, fine. You don't sell it. Go ahead and sell it. So that's why it feels like it's crickets for this fight, which is the heavyweight title fight. Crazy. And it should be the biggest fight. We should be seeing it on commercials. It's only 2 weeks away or whatever. It should be all over all the time. Francis should be everywhere. Instead, the UFC, I think, is kind of playing his game. Yeah. And I think it's going to backfire for Francis.
That's a great point, because this is a marquee match.
This is for the greatest fighter, the baddest dude on the entire planet.
Yeah. And both of the guys that are getting in there are the rightful two guys to be in there. Yep. And it just blows my mind that there's not more press around this. This would be one of those ones that you would think would be like a McGregor fight, where we're going to Los Angeles for a press conference, and then the next day we're in New York, and then we're in the UK after that. Partners. Yeah, there's so much to be had here. Mm-hmm. And I think you might be right. There might be something to be said for the UFC just saying, look, Francis, if you want to play hardball with us, we'll play hardball with you. We're not going to help you get the numbers to then come back and negotiate against us. We're not going to facilitate in our own negotiation.
Right.
On the other side of our own negotiation, we're going to let's see if you really are the marquee star that you say that you are. And I believe Francis is a star. I'm a big fan. I'm also a big fan of Ciryl Gane, by the way. But let's see you prove that.
Yeah.
Let's see you go pull 1 million pay-per-view buys. You got the right dance partner. Ciryl Gane is a future star. So you can't blame it on your opponent. You got to sell this fight. And, you know, if Francis could come out looking like $1 million, he could come out, knock Ciryl Gane flat in the first round, and then, he's going to get paid whatever he wants. Yeah. But if it goes wrong for him, or if it doesn't sell as well, or if Ciryl Gane finishes him because of all the stresses that you brought up that I think are real valid concerns, you know, Francis is dealing with a lot of stuff in fight camp with regards to this negotiation that he shouldn't really be focusing his time on.
Right.
We could see a flat-footed Francis, or I think the worst would be an angry Francis, because Ciryl Gane is a very cerebral, very technical striker. And if you are going to barrage him, he's going to pick you apart.
Yeah, and Ciryl dealt really well with a frustrated Derek Lewis when they fought. You know, once he realized Derek had mentally checked out, it was all but over. And Francis could potentially wind up in that same situation. And then if he comes in angry, he's going to drain himself of energy. And then he's not been known as a cardio machine anyway. So the first round might be a little bit wild for Ciryl Gane, but if he stays sharp, I think he could be finding an easier path to victory, even though it might be a longer road than the quick knockout that Francis usually gets. I'm interested to see how it happens, because I think the numbers are going to tell us the truth. They always do. And we're going to see exactly what Francis is worth. We're going to see where he lies. And I do think, and I hope, that the UFC and Francis can come to a deal, because I think that having the scariest man on the planet in the best organization is a good thing. But, you know, it's his life, it's his career, and the UFC is not the only option. So we'll have to see what happens. But we'll come back to this one before the fight and do a predictions. But some interesting news on this one.
Yeah, for sure. Well, guys, thanks so much for watching this video. Drop us a comment and let us know, do you think this is a good idea for Francis to hold out and try to renegotiate his contract and test the free agency waters, or should he have signed a long-term deal with the UFC already? We always love to hear your thoughts in the comments, so keep them coming. And guys, if you like the content, we appreciate a subscribe to the channel and a like on the video, and we'll see you in the next one.
Peace.